Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be watching a video called The Absolute Insanity of Group B Rally. So if I'm not mistaken, I think rallying is, like a motorsport like Formula One or NASCAR, but I think the circuit are like, it's not a closed or a circular track. It's like, it's whatever. Like they're in whatever road, whatever city they are. It's just like a lot of dirt roads, and it's just like one car. Like you can't fit. It's not like NASCAR or other races where you pass people. No, it's just like you're sort of like there's just one car going through the circuit, and nobody can pass because the roads are like this. So at least from what I've seen, I think that's what it is. And they also have like a co-pilot that sort of like tells them the sort of like, I think, the road ahead, because they have like a little notebook and they're like, I don't know, like go straight at like 30. I don't know if they also tell them the speed, but I know they like a co-pilot that's just guiding you. I think they also have a co-pilot. And also I think the spectators, people that watch this are just like standing. They're not like in chairs or something like other sports. They're just like standing there. So the cars like literally like fly past you, and you have to like because the thing's gonna like, I don't know, like go past your nose or something. So I think it's quite, I don't know if this is because it's called the insanity of Group B Rally, and that's what I think it is, because it's quite an insane sport from what I've seen. So I don't know if this is gonna be like a compilation, or maybe it's gonna be like an explanation of the sport. Hopefully, I don't know, but I can't wait to find out. So let's check it out, and comment, like, subscribe, and start.
Auto racing first began in the 1890s. It was extremely simple.
That's so old.
Get a bunch of cars and drivers together and have them race from one town to another.
It was another town.
First one there wins. In a time before purpose-built racetracks or electronic timing and scoring existed, this was the easiest way to put on a race and have an
That's insane.
Win. However, these events were held on public roads, and thus you couldn't sell tickets, and anyone could just waltz up and watch a race.
Great, love it.
Or at least a segment.
Yeah, segment. Yeah, they're passing by the other city.
Were willing to pay to make that happen. So around the turn of the 20th century, auto racing migrated onto horse racing tracks, as there were already hundreds of them dotted across Europe and North America. Fans could watch the entire race, get food and drinks, and even bet on
like entertainment.
And the best part was, all the infrastructure was already built.
These were horses.
In the span of less than 10 years, motorsports went from almost unrecognizable to looking exactly like a modern racing
That's crazy.
Today.
Oh, I love the
cars. How much the
cars.
sport of auto racing changes, or how much different it looks as
The car goes like this.
some people are always going to want to do things the old way. Even to this day, there are still racing divisions that host races on those same horse tracks from the 1900s. Some people who insist on racing in the old styles are just in it for the nostalgia. Others are purists and say that's the only real form.
Oh my god, that sounds awesome.
Most see it as an old art form that deserves to be preserved.
Oh my god, the wheel, I think the wheel's gonna spin out of control.
Some drivers still held on to the point-to-point style of racing that had started it all. In 1911, the Rally of Monte Carlo was held in Monaco, and the name stuck. That style of racing forever thereafter was known as rally racing. Eventually, instead of one-day point-to-point races, the long rallies were broken up into segments run across multiple days.
It's several
that
days.
Way fans could watch more racing and get more bang for their buck. After World War II, motor racing saw an insane boom in popularity all over the world. By 1950, Formula One had begun competition, and several rally series had popped up. But in 1973, the FIA, the sanctioning body for F1, threw their hat into the rally ring and created the World Rally Championship.
World Rally Championship.
Immediately they saw success as they gained.
Oh my god, that's insane! You have to go through water.
The other major rally races all over Europe, be it in the paved streets of Monaco, the snows of Finland, or the mud of
throughout Europe.
The WRC did it all and had one of the most challenging schedules on the
planet. Oh my god, there's the Eiffel Tower.
Soon, rally racing was becoming more popular than Formula One, because unlike in that series, all the cars in the WRC were stock cars anybody could buy straight from the dealer's lot.
Oh my god, you couldn't buy the car?
The WRC had a rule that in order to race a car in their series, a manufacturer had to produce at least 5,000 units for commercial and private sales. This rule made the Lancia Stratos one of the most recognizable race cars ever made, and it won the WRC
because you can buy the car
3 years in a row, from 1974 through 1976. Even in America and other places where the WRC didn't race yet, people knew about the Stratos. Kids had posters of it on their walls. It
looks like a very futuristic car. Yeah, it looks like the Back to the Future car.
However, by the time the early 80s rolled around, there was a problem with the WRC.
What?
The numbers of divisions or groups they ran were too specialized and too restrictive for the automakers to justify manufacturing 5,000 units necessary to meet the WRC's regulations.
That's kind of sad.
Also, the 6 groups they had hamstrung the teams with tons of rules in the way. So in 1982, the head of the FIA, Jean Balestre, made a radical move.
What?
He condensed down the number of groups from 6 to 3. 2 stock divisions would remain, but the third was something entirely
Oh my god, sorry,
The sanctioning body is trying to win over teams and factories. They introduce new rules to cap costs and keep them happy. But this time, the FIA would take away the rules and say anything goes.
Oh, okay. No rules.
So long as the car has 4 wheels and the engine breathes air,
you can drive.
You can run.
Okay.
For the 1982 season, the FIA
Crazy.
and the WRC effectively threw the rule book out of the window and said, let her rip.
That's insane. Oh my god, people are like, yeah, people have to like, step out. The car's gonna run into you. Oh my god. This picture is for the books. Seriously.
Group B, as it came to be known, was pretty much the Wild West of auto.
Wild West.
Only really matched by the insane northeastern supermodified scene back in the United States. Instead of 5,000 units needing to be produced, it was lowered down to 200. And if you changed something on your car from one year to the next, you only needed to make 20 more.
Oh, well, that's
laughably low.
Oh, yeah, it's quite slow, actually.
Horsepower, turbo, and superchargers were given the go-ahead, and you could run any engine you wanted. And even the dimensions of the cars were not mandated, meaning that you could watch a rear-engine Porsche 959 compete directly against a front-engine Soviet-built car.
Okay.
Yeah, the Kami car.
But how is it fair?
It's completely insane, and I love it. And the manufacturers put their money where their mouth was by putting forth some of the most monstrous cars to ever grace a race course. They started throwing money at their Group B programs and let their engineers go hard.
Love it, yeah.
Lancia were here to take their crown back yet again with their Rally 037, the spiritual successor to the Stratos. It had a 2-liter rear-mounted 4-cylinder engine that produced 265 horsepower.
Okay, that's a lot.
That doesn't sound like much,
but
with one of the few rules being a 960 kilogram minimum vehicle weight, about 2,100 pounds, that meant the 037 could absolutely fly through the streets.
It looks like a very small car.
Lancia would the manufacturer's title in 1983, and they had yet.
Oh my god, she crashed into the post.
The 037 in the Martini colors would become as iconic as any race car could ever hope to be. But their main rival in the 1980s was unquestionably Audi.
Oh, Audi.
The Quattro series of cars. The fact that the word Quattro rung a bell for you tells you how.
Oh my god, the people have to get out of here.
Audi had won the title in 1982 with a nifty idea: 4-wheel drive. The car was a front-engine design and looked fairly normal.
Fairly normal.
It had a turbocharged inline 5-cylinder motor, and the 4-wheel drive.
Actually, it does. It looks like a very normal car.
340 horsepower it produced. It was significantly over the minimum weight, being just a touch under 2,500 pounds.
That's very light.
The way to actually get it on the ground effectively meant that Lancia had serious competition.
Yeah.
4-wheel drive for rally was largely seen as a novelty before Group B, as it was just too unreliable and broke easily. But Audi had apparently found the secret sauce and changed the game forever. They also started an arms race by constantly updating the Quattro.
Okay, so
they started off with the Quattro
it ups the ante.
in 1983, but next they debuted the Sport Quattro.
Oh, I love that one.
This was a big step up in 2 ways. First, it produced 100 more horsepower than the A1, despite using basically the same engine.
And how did they do it?
Second, it really delved deep into the ever-evolving world of aerodynamics.
Yeah, it has like
something that race teams
another
all over
part,
the world
like
had been fiddling with
at the
since
top.
the 1950s. But cars at the time simply did not go fast enough to make it worth spending that kind of money on R&D.
Yeah, it simply doesn't go that fast.
Pushed the envelope so
Oh my
much
God,
in the
look at it
power
flying.
department that aero was now a real concern, and the cars began looking less like street cars and more like rocket ships. Peugeot was also
It's rocket ships. Yeah, it's very futuristic.
205 T16. It had an inline 4 turbocharged.
Look at everyone behind. It looks crazy.
500 horsepower and had aero scoops jutting out of every corner.
Oh my god, people!
And despite it
the
having
amount of
that big
dust
front engine
in
compartment,
those people.
that's not actually where the engine is. It's in the middle for better weight distribution, because this is Group B and you can just do that sort of thing.
Yeah, you can do
Won the
whatever.
manufacturer's title in 1985 and 1986 with Timo Salonen at the helm. Now's where we get to talk about the absolute mad lads and lasses that drove these things, because they were every bit as weird as their cars. Timo Salonen was a Finnish driver who, despite his appearance making him look like a tax accountant,
Yeah, he
was the
looks
best driver in Group B's history,
great.
winning more events than anyone
Yeah, he looks
else.
like very
He was
normal.
a laid-back man who never lost his cool and insisted on driving the car with just one hand and the other one being permanently left on the
Are
shift.
you insane?
Stig Blomqvist took up driving duties for Audi and tamed their Quattro series, being instrumental to their title in 1984. Walter Roll won the title for Lancia in 1983, and of
oh my
course,
God,
we have to
look at the
mention the
feet.
Queen of the Hill, Michelle Mouton. She is arguably the greatest female race car driver that has ever lived. She set the Pikes Peak hill climb record in 1985, won the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and to this day she is the only woman to have ever won a WRC
Oh
event.
wow.
And there you have it, a recipe for success. The fastest cars
And
ever
insane
built in
drivers.
rally racing mixed with the best drivers in the world.
That's an insane.
The FIA wanted to give the WRC a shot in the arm, and they had done it. By 1984, the WRC was more popular than Formula One, and fans flocked to these events in the hundreds of thousands.
Wow, thousands of
Sometimes
people?
as many as 400,000 people would buy tickets to see these cars and drivers in action. There were very few, if any, crowd control measures.
Yeah,
in place
because
for
there's a lot of people
events,
here.
and those 400,000 people got to go somewhere. So
Yes.
people would crowd the racing lines and even stand on the track itself just waiting
That's
to get the
insane.
perfect vantage
Insane for the driver, insane for you, insane for
Some
everyone.
of these videos are just jaw-dropping to watch. It's like the automotive equivalent of the running of the bulls. I don't even know how the drivers or their co-drivers managed to see
No,
the
that's insane.
Mechanics and crew reported that after a segment had been completed, they would find bits of clothing and hair stuck in the grill and
Oh
wings.
my god, hair.
Body panels splattered with blood, and even fingers wedged into the air ducts.
Fingers?
Group B was absolute
Oh
mayhem.
my god.
Coolest race cars, the best drivers, the most rabid fans
Oh
on
my god,
Earth.
I can't believe you
Everything
love the
worked out for
finger.
WRC and the FIA beyond their wildest imaginations. What could possibly
Everything could go wrong. Like, I'm sorry, but this is insanity. Yeah, of course. What could go wrong? Anything.
By 1985, these cars were so fast and there were so few rules in place for safety that even the drivers were starting to voice concerns.
Even the
Another
drivers,
rule
even the
that
insane drivers.
really lack thereof was that cars could be made of any material, including aluminum. Those
Oh my
Audis and
God.
Lancias that weighed scarcely more than a metric ton were able to do so because of their aluminum frames
It's
and roll
so, oh my god,
cages.
the
And
the
thing
car's
about
flying.
aluminum, it likes to bend. If you've ever been on a commercial flight and got a window seat above the wings, you know how much aluminum
Oh
can
my
flex
god,
during
yes, this is
flight.
so
That's a
scary.
good thing for a plane,
Not
but
for a
not
car.
so much for a car.
Yeah.
Rescue workers were also not numerous enough to do anything in case a car went off the track. It could take half an hour for them
Oh my
to
God,
show
half
up on
an
the scene,
hour.
and their communications were also horrendously lacking.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, the only way they found out that a driver had wrecked was when another driver drove past, finished their segment, got out of the car, and reported the smoke. They had
Oh
seen
my
to an
god, that's
official.
insane.
By the time medics and firefighters
It was too
arrived,
late.
it was often far
Of
too
course.
late. Not to mention the hundreds of thousands of spectators crowding the roads made it hard to get to the scene, even if their communication was bad.
Oh my god, look at all
On
the
May
amount of
2nd,
like dust and
1985, at a
fog. What
personal
is that?
rally, A Lancia 037, piloted by Attilio Bottega, went off and slammed into a tree. His co-driver was okay, but when medics arrived 20 minutes later, they found the co-driver Mauricio limping out of the woods and Bottega dead still inside
Oh
of the
my
car.
god.
The drivers petitioned the FIA to do something,
Yeah.
but they determined that at the speed the car was going, nothing would have prevented Attilio's death. It was more or less hand-waved away as a freak
Okay,
accident.
that's crazy.
Racing is inherently dangerous, that's true, but the FIA's investigation left drivers with little peace of mind.
Yeah.
But
So they
later in the
basically
year,
like
during
blamed
the
him?
Argentinian rally, Ari Vatanen crashed in a scary rollover. He broke both legs and a few ribs, one of which punctured his
Oh
lung.
my god, that's
He
so
and his
dangerous.
co-driver survived, but they both vowed to never race in Group B again.
Oh,
The
they
cars were
never
becoming
raced.
so fast with so much power that one driver said the cars moved faster than he could react.
Of
It was more or
course.
less driving on instinct, right on the razor's edge of
Yeah.
what was humanly possible.
Yeah, it's not human.
So going into 1986, the FIA finally budged and outlawed aluminum roll cages and set limits on aero devices like wings and
I agree.
spoilers in hopes of slowing
No,
the cars
yeah.
down. But everything else remained the same. No limits on power and no
No car control. I'm so scared.
Because coming in 1987 was the new Group S
Oh
division.
my god, look at that car. It looks so weird. Ah,
Here there would be virtually
It has
no
like
rules.
wings.
Manufacturers only needed to make 10 road cars to reach the production.
only
And the
10.
automakers were already developing their new round of supercars. In March 1986, the Portugal Rally was held, and the country had already become a hotbed for gearheads of all stripes, and now Group B would get their shot at glory in the
Oh my god,
country.
it goes so
People
fast.
flooded the streets, and the first incident of the rally occurred when a cameraman was basically pushed into the line of fire, and Timo Salonen damn near ripped the man's hand off with his car and
Oh
completely
my god, I got
destroyed
chills.
the $3,000
I
camera.
can't believe
The
it.
next accident would not be so lax. Joaquim Santos, a native Portuguese driver, started off in his Ford RS200. Wanting to see the hometown guy rip through the streets, people crowded more and more onto the course.
Oh my God.
At one point, a spectator jumped out onto the track and Santos swerved to miss him. He then overcorrected and the car slid broadside into a group of people. His co-driver Miguel Oliveira said that in Group B the cars were so fast that he just had to look at his notes and feel the track turn for turn.
Oh my
But in this
God.
instance, he suddenly felt thuds and bumps as the car careened into the
Oh.
crowd. 32 people were injured and 3 people
No,
died,
that's awful.
including a mother and her 11-year-old
Oh
son.
my.
In a disgusting move, the FIA continued the race and did not tell the other drivers what had happened.
Okay, that's.
When the drivers completed the segment and got told what happened,
They were-
banded together and vowed to go on strike to stop the
Yeah, of
competition.
course.
But the FIA kept things going, and Jean Balestre said he would punish any driver or manufacturer that walked
Okay,
out.
this man, I'm sorry, he's
At the
evil.
rally just 2 months later in May, Henry Tovinen and his co-driver Sergio Cresto were putting on the race of their lives, winning stages left and right. But on the second day of competition, their Lancia went off at a point where there was no guardrail, and it flew off of a steep hill. The fuel tank immediately ruptured, and a ball of fire erupted from
No,
the
that's
crash.
awful.
Drivers completing the segment reported to officials that they'd seen black smoke in one
Yeah,
of the
they
turns,
saw
and by
it,
the
of
time
course.
rescue personnel got to Henry and Sergio, there was nothing left of the wreck except a charred frame. now in action was borderline criminal. And after international pressure from drivers, manufacturers, and
everyone,
Group B was immediately banned from competition and never got to see the light
of day. The precedent's like...
Its successor, Group S, was scrapped.
They like... Everyone's like, you have to stop this. The precedent of this association was insane.
After Group B's disbanding, Group A, the more strictly stock division, picked up the banner and marched forward. But this time with the restrictions and safeguards the drivers of the 80s had wanted.
Okay, good.
Now there were crowd limits, they had to be kept further back in most areas, and rescue personnel were more numerous with helicopters in the air and radio communications open.
That's great they have helicopters.
Now if a driver went off, their officials would know about it immediately and be able to send help within a few minutes rather than half an hour. Even still, rally racing remained popular all over the world. The Subaru Impreza WRX and the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo became classic cars, and their computerized traction control systems and driver assist are commonplace on road cars.
Yeah, isn't the Lancer like a normal car?
The features you take for granted in your personal car and the safety precautions in place at every
they tested here
were earned out there on the ice, snow, gravel, and dirt stretching from Portugal to Corsica.
Oh my God!
To Argentina. People had to pay a high price for those things. And if there's any silver lining to Group B and rally racing as a whole, it was that they have saved countless lives through these technological advances.
Yeah, but what would cost?
WRC is still competing today, and the envelope is still being pushed, but with the proper
safety but they go so fast! They're still going insanely fast.
And even with all the new rules set up, limiting horsepower and boost, and making the cars sturdier with steel, if you watch a modern WRC event, you can see that the true spirit of Group B never completely went
It's insane, yeah, like, oh my God! No, that's insane! Look at that man flew over like so high. Fireworks, they do it at night.
Today the cars have a lot less horsepower, but they're actually faster than their Group B.
Yeah, they look very fast.
And with modern seats and belts, they're safer than ever. There's never been a better time to be a rally fan with cameras broadcasting every angle of
I love it when you're high.
And yes, you can still get uncomfortably close to the action if that's your
thing.
For any of my European fans watching this, y'all got it pretty good over there. Don't forget.
I love this. Actually, anyway, this looks gorgeous, by the way. It's like a beautiful wood.
Take it easy.
Wow, okay. This was incredibly interesting. Also quite shocking to me. I knew it was like a very insane sport. Because I can't. It's like they have to be insane because I can't to be able to do these things, especially back in the day when he was like mentioning. I think it was the 80s. You have to be totally off your rocket to drive those cars because it was insane. I think it's crazy to me. Like a lot of things are crazy. The fact that they didn't have regulations in place, like even for the materials of the car, because I can understand them being like, just do whatever you want to. And it's like, well, sure, but you know, like there's a limit. But to not even be like, no, the car, like you can do your car out of like whatever material you want. Of course people are going to be insane. They're going to be like, yes, let's do it out of aluminum. And it's like, wait, a car made out of aluminum? I don't think that's a good idea. It's going to be like so light. Of course you're going to flip over like a high, like there's a lot of wind by, like the car's gone. That's crazy to me that they actually like drove those cars. They manufactured those cars and that people actually like drove in them. That's insane to me. And that's coming from someone that I don't really know much about cars, but even I can tell you that that's crazy. I think it's kind of insane to me, like how long it lasted actually. But I can see like honestly, like the guy, the president, I can't remember his name, but the president of this big Group B thing, like he was quite an evil man because even with like so many car wrecks or horrific car wrecks and like also like drive, like not just for, you know, the drivers, the co-pilots, the ones in the car, but also for the spectators, basically for everyone. And then everyone being like, you have to stop, like stop. And he was like, no, we're not gonna stop. Even pressure men from like the government, like the manufacturers, the drivers, like everyone. And he was like, no, we're just gonna continue. That man is insane, and it's quite an evil thing to do. Like, how are you not telling people when like there was a horrific car wreck in a race, and you're not gonna tell the other drivers? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, you have to be insane and not in a good way. Like, no, you're like, there's something wrong with you. Like, that's crazy. And to the point that the other drivers were like actually on strike. They were like, no, we're gonna go on strike if you don't fix this. And he like, no, he was threatening them. Like, no, if you don't drive, if you don't race, like I'm gonna put a fine on you or something. It's insane. That man, it's like, okay, like seriously, I don't know if they actually like after they did like the big regulation changes, hopefully, like, they kicked him out and he was not president anymore of this association, hopefully, because that man, I'm guessing he also had like a lot of enemies and people were fighting against him like a lot. I don't know. I think I would venture to say. I love the cars. Like, it's insane because, like they said, like the cars, because they didn't really have regulations, so the cars looked crazy. Of course, it was insane in the fact that it wasn't safe, but like the cars looked crazy. I think something that really, I love the white one with like little wings. It literally looked like an angel. Like, I can't explain it, but the car, it's like an angel. It was because it was like white and the little wings. It's like, it's an angel, but in car form. And to me, I think I have to say it's insane that another thing that really, it's like, wait, what do you mean? Like, how is that like, that's not fair for everyone, that you can like, there are no regulations and you can drive, like if your car is whatever, maybe it's like heavier or if it doesn't go that fast, how are you driving against like this other car that's like super light and stuff? There's no like, because there's no like the field is not equal. So how do the drivers and the team, well, I think it was like private, it wasn't teams, I think it was like more like private, well, there were car manufacturers, so maybe like they referred to it as teams. How did everyone was fine with it? I don't know. I think I would be like, wait, no, I'm not gonna drive against a car that's not like the same as the same car that I have, because I think even obviously there's difference. Obviously that's why it's a sport, but I think at least the engine has to be like the same like horsepower. I think like at least. So it's crazy that they like let them they can like, no, you can just like drive against whoever, like you don't really care of like how the other car is manufactured if it's not the same as the one that you're driving. To me, it's crazy to think that people accepted those conditions and they were like apparently fine, because it's like, no, it's not fair. It's not a fair field. So I'd be like, no, I don't think that's right. And also, I think it's kind of crazy because, you know, you see like the whole, how it is these days, you know, the modern part of it. And to me, it looks out of control. Like, I think it's quite like, again, insanity. Like, it's right. It's crazy to think that that's a sport and that people willingly like do it, because it is very entertaining, but I'm seeing it from a screen. I'm not actually there. I would think that people that actually go to these things are like, oh my God, you're crazy, because the thing, I can't, you're very close to the cars. So to know that back in the day, it was like that times like a million, it's like, wait, what? So you mean to tell me that they didn't really have like crowd controls, and it looks super dangerous these days, but apparently these days it's the same. These are the safer days. So it's like, wait, what? It's mind blowing to me that back like 30 years ago, it was something completely different and that it was actually dangerous. Apparently these days it isn't like that dangerous, but it's like, it looks incredibly dangerous. And it's insane that they had like fingers and hair and like blood. And you can tell, like, from the videos, I'm like, why are you, like, standing in well, back in the day, like, people, why were they, like, standing in the middle of the track and on the road? Like, you see a car that's, like, so fast. What are you doing? It's totally unsafe for the driver, for you, for everyone involved. Just, like, step to the side. I think these days, people are, like, to the side of the road. I don't think people are allowed to actually, like, get on the track. I think from the videos that I've seen, I don't think that you can, like, you know, you can record and whatever, but you have to be like to the side. I don't think you can actually like be standing in the middle of like on the road because like of course the car is gonna drive over to you, so it's very, very unsafe. But also, I think something I'm gonna finish off with, like this really like, oh, you know, it's interesting because like they mentioned the Lancer, which I'm pretty sure is like a normal car that people drive these days. So it's kind of insane that it is like you see all those things and you're like, well, it's a sport, you know, it's for entertainment purposes. But he does mention a lot of like a lot of cars that and probably not even just like the Lancer or like models that people can buy in cars in general. They do test it. So a lot of things that we have in modern cars were tested here first. So it's like, oh, I didn't know that. And it's actually quite, it's not just a sport then, because, well, it is a sport, but it serves another purpose besides entertainment. It's like, no, it's actually it's going to do something good for people because we're testing the cars. So because we're testing the cars, we're going to be able to manufacture this, and put it out in the market. So I didn't really know that because I thought that it was just like a sport and people similar to probably like Formula One in the sense that you build a car and that's it. Like the car is made for this. It's not, you're testing like new technologies and stuff in order for them to like release it in the market in another car, which was okay. That was really, really interesting. And even though obviously like that sort of like, I was going to say golden era, but I don't know if it's golden because it was obviously like very tragic. But that, like he said, like the Wild West of rallying, it is like, you see it like this and it's like, well, you know what? A lot of awful things happened, but I can sense like it was sort of like a golden era. Like it's not going to come back. And it was insane. Sadly, a lot of people died. However, it is like they really did like push the boundaries to what was possible. And I think there's like the positive of it all. It's like you were able to see like the limits of like how like what you can do with a car and what people could actually like drive. So like, that's that's the positive thing. And I think probably like fans of rallying look back on those days like, wow, it's like it's like another time, another thing. And it is insane, like to see it from the outside. It's like, oh my god, I can't believe like they actually like did that and they were allowed to like do all those things. But like I mentioned, they were only allowed to do it because the man like running this game was totally off his rocket. So, I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad. You know what? Despite all of that, I'm glad that, we have regulations in place because I think these days, car wreckages and deaths are probably less common, which, great. So yeah, I really feel like I learned a lot. This was incredibly entertaining and incredibly interesting. And I'll see you next time. Bye.